Hi, this is Scott Bradfield in the Advanced Creative Writing course for City Lit. We have this is the unusually bloodless Hunger Games lecture for 2017. Again, I plan to keep replaying these for years, long after I'm dead. I intend to be making money off this advanced course, and hopefully, all these lectures will add up to something. We're trying to reply to specific questions. We had a lot of good questions this this week, and I, I go back to my old argument, which is that you don't need to ask me anything. You don't need to take any courses. You don't need to have teachers. You really just need to read books. It's the easiest way to learn how to write fiction. And one of the questions I kept getting this week, or one of the interesting questions was two about scenes. How do we open a scene and close a scene? Which there's no formula for it, but when you're asking that question, it means you're not really looking at the scenes you're reading. And how do we move time along in ways that move things quickly, that we don't waste our readers' time, that um, skip over the boring bits? Those are very good questions. There's no answer to any of them except reading good writers. We're reading a very good writer this term. It's Point Blank, Richard Stark, the pseudonym of Donald E. Westlake, who wrote several novels a month in the heydays of the paperbacks. And it's the writers who wrote lots of books who learned how to deal with the most difficult techniques and find lots of different and innovative ways of using those techniques, because they had to write quickly, they had to do the job quickly, and they are some of the best writers to read. If you look at just a guy who wins the Booker once and then writes nothing else anyone reads, you're not learning anything. So the good writers can often write many books. Let's look about time. Let's think about chapter 3 in Point Blank. It's originally published as The Hunter, and time and point of view are not. You can't extricate them from one another. Point of view is about time, and time is about what your characters are looking at. So, one of the things you need to start thinking about when you write your scenes is that you need to take us through the significant moments of your character's life. What you will see in almost every workshop submission, I'm going to show you passages where you have 12, 15 things happening. People coming and going, they walk down an alley, then they go in another room, and then someone calls down for them, and they meet three people, and they all have an argument. This is the most common issue in student writing, is they're just making so many things happen that they aren't thinking about time passing in a reasonable way for the reader so they can be in the scene. And they don't want to be told about where everybody's standing in a room. They want to see a scene that's interesting, and then they want to cut to the next one. They don't want to be bored with every little detail about where people are standing and who's standing near the punch bowl and who's standing next to the door. They don't care. They want to get cut to the next important scene. Look at the opening paragraphs of chapter 3. This is Parker's wife, I believe, Lynn, who's responsible for him having spent time in jail. And Parker is a very cold, clinical person. He has very little emotional content. He will have some emotional content, but mainly he's a camera. And that's one of the reasons Westlake likes him. Most of Westlake's books are not like this. They're much funnier. His characters are much more screwier and emotional. And he just did these as kind of a break from his other books. This prose is much leaner. It's a humorless series of books usually, and they're very different from the normal Westlake books. But look at how when he slows down and when he speeds up the camera. He comes into the other room and he finds his wife dead. And now we spend 3 paragraphs. Listen to the first paragraph. Opening chapter. She was a corpse, naked on the bed. He stood in the doorway a minute looking at her. The drapes were drawn against the noon sun, leaving the room as cool and dark as a funeral parlor. An odor of perfume and cosmetics and cologne was vaguely flower-like. Where a faint breeze rippled the separation of the drapes, sunlight flickered like a candle flame. Far away, there was the hum of traffic. Now, again, really, the best part of being in workshops is to read just read that paragraph. That's a very lean, quick paragraph. And see how rarely we see that paragraph in student work. You could all write that paragraph. It's not a hard paragraph to write. It requires you to start doing something that you're not doing. What you're often doing is having lots of things happen because you want to make it very exciting. You're not taking the time to let readers see something. Parker comes up and sees his ex-wife dead, someone he still cares about and he's angry at. And he takes time to look at her. There's 3 paragraphs there just looking at a dead woman on the bed. It's not to be grisly. You'll see lots of student work where the blood and there's mucus and there's snot, and there's lots of snot pouring out of these characters. We don't need any of that. We need to look. He looks at her physical layout on the bed. It's not salacious, it's not gross, it's not horrific. It's just taking time to look at this woman. It means he's taking time. And he looks at her, and he visualizes. He looks at her on the bed and looks at this room. Now that's a long period of time for a thriller. But Westlake knows it's an important moment. Knowing when you have an important moment in your prose is much more important than having 5 people come in and out of the room and have lots of things happening. Recognize it. Now, look at the reaction. He's almost always going to deal with how Parker reacts to things and what he does. We're not going to get lots of descriptions of which room he goes in. We're going to get straight to the next action. And time now is going to pass much more quickly because it's much less interesting. So time slows down as we look at the woman on the bed. And now we come around, we look at the pill bottle. Look at that passage. He picks up the pill bottle. He sees who prescribed it for her. He just looks at it. We don't hear what he thinks about the bottle. It's not explained to us what he feels about the bottle. He just looks at it and we put ourselves in his head. Now, after that, he goes, look at page 22 in my version anyway, about 5 paragraphs after that. He's looked at her for a while, he's realized how she's killed herself, and he thinks he had to get rid of her. He had 3 days to stay here, and she couldn't be here with him. In all his rages, 6 months on the prison farm, he had never planned to kill her. To beat her, yes. To mutilate her. To give her pain and scars, but not to see her dead. So here's the really violent side of Parker. Very simple, very clinical, very efficient. Parker's just efficient, and so is the prose. Now we go through a long description here of him taking her out, and he goes into the next room. He watches cartoons. Time's passing because we could cut to him dragging her out into the park, but Westlake wants us to see him waiting and the methodicalness of this character. We're going to sit through and wait till it's good time to take her out. Now we go through a long period where he goes out, he puts her in the park, and he stabs her so that she looks like she's been killed, and then he leaves her out there. And then he goes back to the end of the paragraph, the end of the chapter. We start with a long period of time, a few minutes. We're looking at her. Everything's clear. Talk, tick, talk. And then a series of actions which take place over a much longer period of time. Then we close him going to bed, which normally I hate my students when they wake people up and go to bed. But he closes, it's very important, because we go back to the house. He says, the end of the chapter. He was very tired now, and he was moving unsteadily by the time he entered the apartment. He switched off all the lights and stretched out on the couch. He fell asleep at once. Now look at how quickly, we know he lies on the couch, he closes down, he falls asleep. We don't need lots of details about what he drank, and he went and brushed his teeth, he went to the toilet. We just cut straight to that one moment, because the important moment for Westlake and for Richard Stark is not whether he went to the bathroom or not or brushed his teeth, but that he slept without a problem. He fell right to sleep. Now, if you clutter that up with lots of unimportant actions, that significant moment of time is lost. So you need to start thinking in each scene, what is the moment that's important for my character here, and it just should be natural. The more details, the more actions you start describing. This is another thing we'll constantly be trying to mark in these passages, is he turned his elbow to the left as the sun was coming up over the sun, through the mountains outside the window while his wife went into the bathroom to brush her teeth. these continuous explanations of actions. You got to focus and you got to take a little time. Now, that's a 4-page chapter in which a lot of things happen. A lot of things happen, but nowhere near as many things happen as often happen in our student stories. Now look at the chapter break. He goes to bed, and we don't wake up the next morning. That's when you know you're just not thinking. He went to bed. The next morning, he got up and brushed his teeth. The next morning is not important. We're not taking them through the calendar of their life. We're going on to the next important moment of their life. And we go to the next chapter with this. Chapter 4. 3 days of no sound but what droned from the television set. The apartment smelled stale, as though she was still in it. He didn't wait well. So 3 unimportant days go by. We just skip them. All we know is it's getting smelly, he's anxious. We know his routines because he goes through the routine in the previous chapter. He watches TV, he watches cartoons. You know, he avoids the alcohol. At one point he says, I'm not going to let her get me drinking again. We go through his methodical days. And then we go 3 days later because the next day that's important is when the man comes to deliver the money. Cut to it. Now, this is not just thriller writing. This is any type of good writing. We don't care about a lot of the intervening moments and actions. And so there's no rule. This is how time should pass. There's no rule. Scene should start like this, end like this. But you got to start thinking about those because those are the 2 most important aspects of any story. If you're simply giving lots of events that happened in someone's life, they met this person, they got married, they went to this place, they got this job, they went to school, you're completely losing your reader immediately. You've really got to start thinking of these as stories that start at a big important point of a person's life. You walk in the room and your wife's dead. And then moves on to the next one. The man's coming with the money. And the thriller writers think about all that stuff. Faulkner thinks about this. Great novelist Julian Barnes thinks about it. Most good novelists, Graham Greene thought about it. Evelyn Waugh thought about it. All good writers think about that. And you've got to start looking at how writers are using time at opening scenes and closing scenes and moving on to the next big event. Okay, that's the end of our first lecture. I'll try to do one more Hunger Games lecture from some of the questions that were asked. All right, take care.